From closed session is 7:08 p.m. I'll ask City Attorney Mr. Kennedy if you would please report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In closed session, the City Council was presented with a signed settlement agreement from 3 defendants in the Swagelock litigation. The settlement agreement was with the defendants Whitney, Swagelock, Lozick, and on a motion to approve the settlement agreement by Councilmember Donahue, seconded by Councilmember Welch. All 5 members of the City Council voted in favor of accepting the settlement agreement. The terms of the settlement agreement are a lump sum cash payment to the successor agency of $33 million, also a structured settlement with the defendants' parties' contribution claims against Hanson Marchant, and an agreement that Emeryville will continue to litigate the defendants' assigned claims as a tag-along to Emeryville's claims against defendant Hanson.
Madam City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, just for purposes of the record, to clarify, it was the members of the successor agency board who also voted to approve that settlement agreement. Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Okay, that's the report out from closed session. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:09 p.m. This closed session meeting of the City Council is now adjourned.
See you in 3 minutes.
Yep, the members of the public who are attending, the next meeting will begin at 7:12. So we'll have 2 minutes of elevator music and smiling faces. God bless your writing hand. Okay. Time is 7:12 p.m. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Emeryville, sitting as the Public Financing Authority. Please note this meeting is being conducted pursuant to exemptions to the Brown Act authorized by Assembly Bill 361 during the COVID pandemic. We're allowed to meet via video conference and teleconference, provided there is a state of emergency and that the city makes findings not less than every 30 days. But the necessity for conducting these meetings is in the health, safety, and welfare of the public, our staff, and the members of this board. We will make those findings every 30 days, and members of the public who wish to participate can do so by joining us on Zoom and using the raise hand feature to provide public comment, or pressing *9 to join us by telephone with comment. You may also submit a written comment card in advance of this meeting using the link provided for on the city's website. This time I'll ask the clerk if she would please take the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Here.
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember Welch?
Here.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Here.
And Mayor Bowders.
Here. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the final agenda.
I move approval.
Second.
I'm motioned by Vice Mayor Medina, seconded by Councilmember Welch to approve this agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Motion has been approved. Agenda is approved. Ex parte communications. Seeing none, we'll turn to public comment for the consent agenda or items not on this agenda. No hands are raised. Madam Clerk, did we receive any written comment cards?
We did not.
Okay, public comment is now closed. We'll turn to the consent calendar. Any members wish to pull anything? Seeing none, is there discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Donahue, seconded by Welch to approve the consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, there's no action items. This meeting is adjourned. The time is 7:13 p.m., Madam Clerk. The time is 7:13 p.m. I call to order the City of Emeryville's Community Development Commission for the City of Emeryville. Please note this meeting is being conducted pursuant to exemptions to the Brown Act authorized by AB 361. Please note that all members still remain present from the prior meeting. This time I'll take a motion to approve the final agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Medina, seconded by Member Donahue to approve agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Are there any ex parte communications? Seeing none, is there public comment? Members of the public who wish to comment will have 2 minutes to speak. Do we receive any written comment cards?
No, we didn't.
No hands are raised. Public comment is now over. We'll turn to the consent calendar. Members, is there any items you wish to pull? Seeing none, is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Donahue, seconded by Welch to approve consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Consent calendar is approved. There are no action items. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:15. This meeting is adjourned. Time is 7:15. I call to order this meeting of the Management of Emeryville Services Authority. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to exemptions to the Brown Act under AB 361, as was previously noted. All members remain present for this meeting. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve this agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Donahue, seconded by Medina to approve agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Motion to approve the agenda has been approved. Are there any ex parte communications? Seeing none, is there any public comment for the Mesa Board meeting? Seeing none, did we receive any written comments?
We did not.
Okay, public comment is now closed. We'll turn to the consent calendar. Members, do you wish to pull anything from consent? Seeing none, is there discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Donahue, seconded by Medina to approve consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Item 7.1 is an action item related to Assembly Bill 361. Members, before we take up this motion, just as a note that because we have no meetings in the month of August, we need to calendar Mesa redevelopment and city council meetings for August to allow us to continue AB 361 meetings. I'm asking with the approval and consent of council today that on the July 20th meeting, the July 19th calendar meeting date for these meetings, that we will have agenda items to do that. Is everyone acceptable with that as an approach? Okay, great. Seeing that, is there any public comment on AB 361? Seeing no hands, do we receive any written comment cards for this item?
No, we did not.
Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Welch, seconded by Donahue to approve this resolution. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:17. This meeting is adjourned. Time is 7:17 p.m. I call to order the City of Emeryville as the successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. As was previously noted, this meeting is being conducted pursuant to exemptions to the Brown Act under Assembly Bill 361, and that all members still remain present. This time I'll entertain a motion to approve the final agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Welch, seconded by Donahue to approve agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, agenda has been approved. Ex parte communications, seeing none. Public comment for the consent agenda or items not on this agenda. Members of the public who wish to comment for items in the scope of the redevelopment agency will have 2 minutes. Do we receive any comment cards?
No.
No hands are raised. Public comment is now closed. Turning to the consent calendar, there are 2 items. Members, do you wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none, is there any wish to discuss any of these items? Seeing none, is there a motion on these items?
I move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motioned by Donahue and seconded by Medina to approve consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Item 7.1 is our Assembly Bill 361 resolution. Similar to the last meeting, members, does anyone object to a July 19th calendar item to allow us to continue a discussion at some point in August? Okay, we agree to that. Is there any public comment on item 7.1? Did we receive any comment cards for this item?
We did not.
Okay, public comment being closed. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Welch, second by Donahue to approve this resolution. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Time is 7:19, Madam Clerk. This meeting is adjourned. Okay. Thank you all for helping us get through that. So the time is 7:19. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City Council of the City of Emeryville. Please note that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to exemptions to the Brown Act authorized by Assembly Bill 361, which was further elucidated earlier in this evening, and members of the public who wish to participate in our meetings may join us via Zoom using the link provided for in today's agenda. They can give public comment using the raised hand feature on Zoom or dialing *9 by their telephone, or they may submit electronic written comment cards in advance by going to our city's website, going to the council agendas page, and clicking on the link that allows them to submit a comment to the clerk, which will be read into the record at the appropriate time. I will ask if the city clerk would please call the roll for this meeting.
Councilmember Donahue?
Here.
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember Welch?
Here.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Here.
And Mayor Bowders.
Here, thank you all for being here. A motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting. I would like to actually make a request. Item 11.2 will remain on the agenda, but I am going to ask, due to technical mistake related to adequate noticing, I just want to notify the public that we will not be conducting the public hearing this evening on item 11.2. There was a mistake that needs to be complied with related to adequate noticing, and so that will be continued to our July 19th meeting. It will remain on the agenda, and there is an opportunity to provide comment, but it will not be included as part of a public hearing, as we will not do a presentation and not take testimony this evening. So if you're here for that item, I just want to provide that feedback for you now, that if you wish to comment on it at a time when action will be taken, it will be at the next meeting. With that understanding, is there a motion to approve this agenda?
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Medina
Second.
and a second from Member Donahue. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, the agenda is now approved. There are no special orders of the day. Madam Clerk, do you have any announcements for commission and committee vacancies?
Not tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council member special announcements or reports on meetings in attendance. Member Welch, do you have anything to report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Member Donahue.
Yes, this will be my last term as a council member.
Thank you for that announcement, Ms. Member Donahue, and for all of your years of service to the City Council. Councilmember Martinez.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Medina.
Yes, I attended the East Bay EDA Finalist Awards, which I had promoted previously. And when I got there, I found out via Chad Smalley and all the signs that I didn't read the entire email and realize this is like the semifinals. Like we're doing like a sports match approach where this isn't the whole East Bay EDA Awards. It was just announcing the finalists. So the good news is Emeryville has 3 finalists moving forward to the awards. Unfortunately, 2 of them are head-to-head in the food category. This does guarantee us a win as a city, so that's exciting, but we just hate to see them going up against each other. So anyway, can't wait for the actual East Bay EDA Awards, because this was already quite an event. I don't know how they're gonna top this. It was great. I saw Chad and many of our small businesses there.
Thank you. I like that announcement more than I thought I would. Okay, announcements on my end. I just, this last week and a half, I was representing Alameda County's Transportation Commission. We have been supported since 1986 by voters through Measure B and Measure BB with what is now a full cent sales tax leverage, which allows the county to build, plan, and fund. So actually fund, plan, and deliver transportation projects all across the county, which includes some programs and operations, including our Safe Routes to Schools program, transit funding for operations, and a lot of the projects that we've come to enjoy here in Emeryville. And we have that authority through 2045, the spring of 2045. But we have a lot of projects that are approved by the voters that are ready for construction now ahead of financing schedule. And I'm really pleased to report that the Transportation Commission authorized a debt issuance earlier this year to bring money in through a bond, a general obligation bond measure, muni bonds, to help fund and advance the construction of those projects. We received 2 AAA credit ratings, which I was able to participate in earlier this year. And I spent the last week and a half meeting with investors from large mutual fund companies, firms, name them, insurance companies, all kinds of groups in Boston and New York. And probably one of the most nerve-wracking things I've done in a long time was sit through 90 minutes of a bond issuance at Wall Street in Manhattan and watch you try to sell 125 million. It's like watching, I don't even know how to compare it. It's like watching the lottery, kind of. It was very exciting, but I'm pleased to announce that we had $688 million in orders. We were the highest credit rated agency nationally that was on the market that day, and there was a very high demand. We sold out each of our years of issuance in bonds, and we actually were able to reduce yields in a number of those years to save taxpayers here money, because there was still a demand for the bonds even when we did a reduction in interest. And so those bonds will be finalized on July 14th, and $125 million will come back to Alameda County to put voter-approved projects into construction ahead of schedule. So I'm very pleased that we were able to do that this year. I learned a ton doing a bond issuance. It is a significant amount of work, and I'm grateful to the staff at the Alameda County Transportation Commission for their expertise and professionalism in bringing us to that place. With that, we will move now to the city manager's report. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to express appreciation, gratitude to the Emeryville Police Department, supported by the Emeryville Public Works Department, in facilitating community access to our beautiful marina for the 4th of July celebration. The community had safe access to the marina, and we were able to have a safe evening. And I know that took a lot of planning and effort, as it always does, and did not want that to go unremarked. So thank you, EPD, and thank you, Public Works.
Yes, and I'll extend the council's appreciation as well for keeping our community safe. It was not the same for every community across our country this year, and that's not limited to this holiday, unfortunately. It's the experience many communities are having on a daily basis. So thank you to the men and women of our community who serve us and protect us. Are there any other announcements? No? Okay, ex parte communications members, please take a look at the agenda. I will ask each of you if you have ex parte communications for any of tonight's action or public hearing items that you wish to report. I will begin with Vice Mayor Medina.
None.
Okay, Member Martinez? None. Member Donahue? None. Member Welch? None. And I have none as well. So there are no ex parte communications to report this evening. So we'll turn now to public comment for the consent calendar and items not on tonight's agenda. Members of the public who wish to comment for an item not on the agenda or on the consent agenda will have 3 minutes to do so. And Madam Clerk, did we receive any written comment cards in advance of tonight's meeting?
We did not.
Okay, and I see no hands raised. Public comment is now closed. Members, we'll turn to item 10, which is the consent calendar. We have items 10.1 through 10.13 before us this evening. Are there any items on the consent calendar which a member wishes to pull or have further discussion about? Seeing no hands, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll move consent.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Medina has made a motion. It's been seconded by Member Donahue to approve this consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you. The consent calendar and its items have been approved. We'll turn to our first public hearing of the day. Our first public hearing is 11.1, which is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville establishing the fiscal year 22-23 Property and Business Improvement District, known as the PBID to folks here, annual assessment levy for the respective parcels within the improvement district with a 3% increase on all parcels, and approving the preliminary budget submitted by the Emeryville Transportation Management Association for service year 2023. And I'll welcome both Brad Farmer and Ronnie Hatch. Brad is our finance director and Ronnie is from the ETMA.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Before you tonight is the annual PBID assessment levy and the preliminary ETMA budget. I'm going to ask Ronnie to go ahead and run us through this in a second, but the recommendation is to increase the annual assessment for the upcoming 22-23 year by 3% in all parcels. That's the big action item. The other thing I want to remind you is that last year during the pandemic, there was no increase. So this will be an average of 1.5 over 2 years. The max that can be levied is 5%, and the current CPI for this year was 5.2%. Ronnie, would you like to go ahead and take over the presentation, please?
Yes, thank you, Brad. And good evening, Mayor Bowders and council members. Before you is our presentation of the Emeryville TMA preliminary budget and levy increase recommendation. I'm not quite sure how to advance to the next slide though.
Oh, just say next slide.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a quick overview of our presentation here. I just wanted to cover the Emeryville round service level and impacts resulting from our pandemic. The ridership going over the ridership from 2014 through 2022. Kind of our forecast of anticipated level of service and ridership through 2030. Key factors that might drive cost increases in the coming years. And then lastly, our recommendation for the 2023 levy and our preliminary budget and forecast. Next slide, please. In March of 2020, the Emeryville ridership dropped under 10% of pre-pandemic ridership, ridership levels due to the shelter-in-place orders issued by throughout the nation, rather. In April of 2020, and as a response to that significant ridership drop, Emeryville round service levels were reduced to 68% of pre-pandemic service levels. We did eliminate our commute service on weekdays, and we shortened the span of service to better align with the BART service changes. But we felt it was very important to continue maintaining a reliable service for the essential workers in Emeryville. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick look at what our commute service route looked like before, and then what our standard service routes are. So in our commute service, we have some split service so that we can more effectively serve the north and south ends of Emeryville. And we also have an express service to the Watergate area and the towers there. And then during the pandemic, obviously, we adjusted our service plan to only operate the standard service route, which is one route serving the Hollis corridor and another route serving the Shell Mound, 40th Street and the Peninsula. Next slide, please. Emeryville ridership is currently at 31% of pre-pandemic levels. So we have increased from the previous, just under 10% when the pandemic initially hit. We are noticing a slow increase. However, our ridership is right in line with the BART ridership. Our weekday ridership is at 30%. Again, BART ridership, the last we checked, was about 32. And then our weekend ridership is actually at 60%. So folks are using the service more. That ridership is coming back at a faster rate as people use it to get around on the weekends. Next slide, please. This is just a visual look at our weekday ridership totals. You can kind of see where our ridership was hovering in the earlier years, and then the last 3 years, kind of where we are today. And you can see that we are making a steady climb, throughout the beginning of this year at least. Next slide, please. And this is the weekend, obviously not as consistent as weekday ridership, but you can see there where we, again, our ridership is increasing and getting closer to what we had pre-pandemic. Next slide, please. And more recently, March, we did increase, so we did increase service levels by 5% to 73% of pre-pandemic levels. We essentially added service during the higher ridership periods for the Shell Mountain Power Route. We do expect that the Watergate Express service will be restored this summer. We're taking more in-depth counts at those locations along the peninsula to give us the data we need to support adding that service. Our current frequency is 15 minutes on weekdays on both the Shell Mountain and Hollis routes, and then 20 minutes on weekends. So providing still a reliable transportation service for the community. In 2020, we expect with the Watergate Express route being reinstated, we'll be at 80% of pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. Ridership, we expect this year, and this is just based on kind of trends we're seeing in the industry, ridership is expected to increase probably by 50 or 60% in 2020, which would bring us to a 40 to 50% of pre-pandemic level. As we anticipate folks returning to the office, I think there are a lot of folks having hybrid work schedules, so a lot's gonna change over the next 18 months, we expect. And so we do anticipate a bump to start happening at the end of summer once folks return to school and people get into their new norm. I do expect that we will have a slow progression of ridership growth thereafter. And I expect that we will have service levels remaining at 80% of pre-pandemic levels through 2026. And then possibly a 10% increase in service around the 2027 time period. And we do not anticipate restoring to 100% of our service levels before the year 2030. Next slide, please. So there are some upcoming or current financial items that we are tracking the trends on. The one is operator wages and contract cost increases. The current operations contract that we have with our operator ends this December, and we will be going out to bid this winter with an anticipated contract start date in July of 23. With this operator bidding, we do anticipate a bump in operating expenses as the various operators do struggle with competitive wages for the industry, and it's just really been complicated to get folks back to work. So the demand for operators has been pretty high and increasing as those large tech companies are going back, putting their services back in, and again, just having the struggle with folks getting back to work. So I do anticipate that we will have a bump in our operations contract costs, but we do plan on securing those costs for 5 years. And at that time, we'll have a better forecast for what our costs will be over the coming years through 2030. The other big item that we're all facing is the rising cost of fuel. And we're just watching those trends closely. Thankfully, we do partner with AC Transit. We have a fueling agreement with them, so we do get favorable fuel pricing, but it's all relative. It's all going up in regardless of the discounts we get. And then another just kind of thing to keep on the mind is the loss of revenue. Those folks, we did have a trend in the economic downturn around 2010 where we were losing, people weren't necessarily paying their tax bills on time, so we were losing revenue from delinquencies. And I just think it's something that we all need to kind of keep our minds on as folks, struggle with the economy over the coming years. And then, of course, the only mitigation measure that we have, if we are facing any financial impact, is we would just adjust service levels down to make sure that our costs are within our forecasted budget. We do have a cap on our PBIT increases of 5%, and we recognize that, and we've planned for that, historically, and we just are continuing to monitor the situation year over year. Next slide, please. At our June 16th Board of Directors meeting, the board voted in approval of the following 2023 PBIT preliminary budget and a recommendation to council for a 3% increase in the levy assessment for 2023. Next slide, please. In your packet is probably a more clear version of this. It's hard to see on a slide, but you can see kind of our line over line forecasted costs. Things that have impacted us financially in the more recent years, last year particularly, is the fact that we do have to have on-site security at our bus yard which we did not expect we would need, but we do feel it's necessary. And that was a big cost increase for us last year. And then again, just the anticipated increase in operating costs and the fuel cost increases. With the unknowns as they are today, this is a 2023 preliminary budget. We do bring to you in the fall our final budget for 23. And at this time, I've just included a contingency of 180,000, given those big factors of the operations contract, which we still will not know in the fall. We won't know until early 2023. But we will have a better idea of all of our expenses throughout the year, and can more right-size that contingency amount in the final budget. The next slide, please. And then there's just some comparisons here that kind of show the difference between what we have budgeted in 2022 versus 23. I won't go into detail, but it's in your packet if you have any questions. And then the next slide, please. And then just our forecast, our 2030 forecast, which is also included, I believe, in the materials that you have. But just, wanted to kind of give a sense of where we are today. We do expect that our costs will increase on average of between 5 and 6% per year, as they have historically. And we are assuming that we would like to stick to a 3% per year levy increase throughout the remainder of the PBID term through 2030. That's our goal, is to stick to 3%. Of course, if things change in the variables that I've listed in this presentation earlier, then we would need to make some reconsiderations on that. But this forecast here shows you what our bottom line would be at the end of the PBID term if we were to maintain a 3% levy increase, and then costs were realized at the 5 to 6% average increase per year. Next slide, please. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here happy to help answer any.
Thank you. Questions only, Member Donahue?
Have you calculated our housing population increasing? Like, for example, the Sherwin-Williams site is starting to lease up, and they also have another factor that maybe you have calculated, which is a van service to West Oakland Park.
Yes, so I think increase in population is going to help our ridership, increase. Our ridership is rather low considering the past year. So I think we'd really like to see that increase over the next 8 years. And with all of the new development coming through the city, which, I expect we'll see that ridership increasing over time. It'll just be interesting, all of the moving parts, hybrid workplaces, and how that changes things, people working from home more, and then the development, obviously adding more ridership as well. So I think that's gonna actually help our situation in giving us more ridership, not in the sense that we earn fare box revenue, because we don't, but it's nice to see that the service is being well utilized.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ronnie, for presenting, and Brad for being here. This is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:41. Hear ye, all who wish to speak in the public hearing on item 11.1. We'll have 3 minutes to do so. The public hearing is now open. Members of the public who wish to speak in the public hearing just need to use the raise hand feature on Zoom or press *9 by phone. I see no hands. Madam Clerk, did we receive any written comment cards for this item?
We did not.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:42, and I am now closing the public hearing. Coming back from the public hearing, members, is there anything that you'd like to discuss or give comment on related to item 11.1? No, I just want to thank the TMA for thoughtfully working with the regional transit partners, as we are a last mile service here with the TMA, to help provide continuity in that service. It helps keep seniors able to age in place. It provides important connectivity for essential workers and hourly wage workers who do not want to and cannot afford a car, personal vehicle. So this is a critical service that we have here in our city, and I think that the proposed budget increase for the coming fiscal year is a prudent allocation of resources from the public. So with that, is there a motion on this item to approve this item?
I move to approve this item. I agree. It's a completely reasonable increase.
I second.
Okay, a motion has been made by Vice Mayor Medina and seconded by Councilmember Welch to approve the 2022-2023 PBID annual assessment levy and the accompanying resolution with it. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, that item is approved. We'll move to item 11.2, as was noted at the outset of this meeting. This is the Emery Station Overland project. Due to a mistake with public noticing, we are unable to present this item tonight, and so we will not be conducting a public hearing. However, it is an agenda item. So I will call, members, is there anybody who wishes to say anything about this before I call for public comment for any reason? I would recommend against it since we have a public hearing. Okay, this time I'll call for public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on this item, I will give 1 minute to doing so this evening as we're taking no action. And Sherry, did we receive any written comments for this item tonight?
We did not.
Okay, so public comment being closed, no action being taken. We'll move past item 11.2 to 11.3, which is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Emeryville, amending the planning regulations by adding mass timber construction as a community benefit eligible for development bonus points in section 9-4.204 subsection E of the Emeryville Municipal Code. And I will turn it over to Charlie and Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor Bowders. I believe that Nancy Humphrey is going to make the staff presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Good evening.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Sherry. As you may recall, we discussed this some months back here at City Council, and council members, or the council directed staff to take this back to the Sustainability Committee to be worked out, which the Sustainability Committee did work it out and then referred it or sent it to the Planning Commission for their review. And the Planning Commission made some recommendations and changes, which I'll go over, and then recommended it to the council at their May 26th meeting. So next slide, please. Just as a reminder, or for those who have not heard about it before, mass timber are large wood products that are typically panelized and engineered. They may include solid sawn, heavy timber, but mostly they're engineered wood. And one of the advantages of that is that you don't need large mature trees because you can engineer together smaller pieces of wood from smaller trees. So it has an advantage for wildfire thinning and so forth, and it doesn't pose a threat to old growth forests. Next, please. Again, as a reminder, there are several kinds. These are 3, and I've got 3 on the next slide that have somewhat different applications. They're generally glued together, nailed or doweled together, either with the same grain or opposite grain, and for different uses. Next, please. These are some more of the examples, and they're being used more and more. Next, please, Sherry. Because they have a great number of benefits. They have much lower greenhouse gas emissions than traditional steel and concrete. They also sequester carbon, so they're not producing much in their life cycle, and they are holding on to some, so that's a net positive. It's a lower construction time and cost. Construction can be much quicker with less heavy equipment, which has less impact on neighborhoods. There's some research that shows improved quality of life when you're in a wood environment rather than a concrete environment. It helps, as I mentioned, with forest management, or can help, and it is a North American product, can be a North American product, and so there are not as many issues with supply chain. Next, please. And as of March of this year, there were almost 1,400 multifamily commercial or institutional projects in design or constructed with mass timber in the U.S. And this number is going up exponentially. Every time they make this map, it's quite a bit more impressive. So it's a technology that is really becoming mature. Next, please, Sherry. So there's interest in this, and in 2021, the International Building Code added tall wood buildings as a code category, and the California Building Standards Commission, in response, wanted to adopt this tall wood code and approved an intervening code supplement, which meant that the IBC standards on tall wood buildings became effective in California last year, a year ago. And City Council and the Sustainability Committee, led by Councilmember Donahue, proposed adding a category of community benefits to the development bonus system. So I'll go into the development bonus system in a moment, but so that was the proposal, and the Planning Commission considered and recommends this addition as an eligible community benefit. Next, please. Wrong way. There we go. So community benefits, community benefit categories in the planning regulations are available to developers who would like to maximize or increase their allowable floor area ratio, building height, or residential density. And the development bonus points can be earned in any of these categories, plus anyone claiming development bonus points must get half of their points from affordable housing. The other half of the points can come from this menu of other point options. So you can see these are sort of general community benefits, and the proposal today with this ordinance is to add a new benefit to this list for mass timber construction. Next, please. The key elements of this proposed benefit would be that there are a total of 50 points available, that they would only be available to buildings over 85 feet in height, and that is because buildings under 85 feet in height can be and typically are built with traditional lumber. So what we want to do is incentivize people who were going to use steel and concrete to use mass timber instead. There's a scalable point system, which I'll show you, well, on the next line. The scalable point system, you could get between, I guess, 2 and 50 points. For decking, which is the most mass of a building, for decking, you would get 8 points per 10% of total floor area built with mass timber. And also with decking, there was a question about concrete topping on decks. And we didn't want to give people credit for a mass timber deck if they put a thick concrete topping on it. So the Planning Commission added this with help from our expert consultants, that you would get points deducted if you had excessive concrete topping, and that's defined. And then for the other 2 points per 10%, that would be framing. So if you do decking on 100% of your building, you could get, well, no, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. You get 8 points per 10%. Yeah, that's wrong. Charlie, isn't that wrong?
Why don't you continue through the presentation and we can figure that out.
Okay. In any case, it's a 4-to-1 ratio. You can maximize up to 50 points, which is why I think this it should be 4 points and this should be 1 point. But in any case, it's a 4-to-1 ratio of decking to framing. You can do one or both and get the points. Next, please. So as I mentioned, the Planning Commission added that minimum building height so that we are not giving incentives to people who would have built with wood anyway. They clarified the definition of deck to include the roof deck and to exclude slab on grade. And they addressed the concern about the use of concrete as a topping slab by deducting points based on the depth of such a slab. So this next slide is kind of horrifying, but we're going to look at it. This is in your packet as well. This is just the language, proposed language for the community benefit. And the red is the key points. Basically, 8 points per 10% of total floor area for decking, 2 points per 10% of total internal floor area. Framed, you would get 10 points deducted per half inch of Portland cement-based concrete topping on a mass timber deck. It applies to buildings 85 feet in height or taller. And the calculations of percentage are based on the total floor area, excluding parking and loading areas, because it's impractical in most cases to build those out of mass timber for loading purposes. So next slide, last slide. You have the proposed ordinance in your packet, and the proposal here tonight is to add mass timber construction as defined as a community benefit eligible for development bonus points in section 9-4 204 euros. It should be E in parentheses of the Emeryville Municipal Code.
Okay. Is that the conclusion of the staff presentation?
That is.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do before we open any public hearing on this item is have questions from council members first about this. I have several questions, but I want to see if other members have questions first. Maybe someone could help me. So I'm very supportive of what we're doing. I want to really just commend and appreciate Member Donahue, first of all, for asking us to pick this up before it was in the International Building Code, the State Building Code, and like flagging this for us a number of years ago, and us sticking with this and getting to this place. So I support this, and we'll find a way to support what we need to do to make this a community benefit. I do have some questions about the math. There's a couple of things that didn't maybe make sense to me, but I wasn't working on this closely like the Sustainability Committee. So perhaps folks could help me just understand. When reading the item in the table, Nancy paused where I would have paused, was one of my two questions. One, since there's only 50 points that can be allocated as half the points, we have 100 points max in the bonus system. Half of those come from affordable housing. The other half, in theory, my understanding was that these other 50 points would come from other community benefits like this. If we give 8 points for 10%, then it maxes out by my math at 48%. To 48 points, eight points at 60%. So we're getting to like 60%. So we're really not incentivizing the whole building to be CLT. We're incentivizing like half of it. Am I misunderstanding that? I see Charlie's hands raised.
Thank you, Mayor Bowders. I'm not sure I quite understand the comment you just made, but I do believe that Nancy is correct. I think that was an error that nobody caught up until just now, which is that I believe it should be 4 points per 10%, and 1 point per 10% for the second piece. So I would recommend that you make that change before you pass the first reading of this ordinance.
That's exactly what my point was. I was doing the math. Since we can only get 50 points and it's based on points, we would only be able to get to like, and 8 points, right? That's 6 sets of 8 is 48 points. And so that's converts over to 10% each. That's 60% of the building. So it wouldn't really build us a CLT building in the end. So That was my first question, so I think that that's good to hear you say that. My other question is the concrete topping. Why are we even like? Is there a development reason why people would put less than a half inch of concrete on top of CLT? It seems weird to do that. It feels like we're making it complicated when we don't need to. It should just be like, we don't need to have it at all. Like, why do we have that? And it just feels like it just becomes something that we have to have, tested and measured, all kinds of, it just feels like it would be an administrative burden. Why even allow it at all? Is there like a reason they need to do topping?
Nancy, maybe you can respond to that. I don't know if you have any of your experts here at the meeting tonight, but I believe this was discussed with them. But I think it's something that developers sometimes do in order, I believe it's for noise insulation. Is that not right, Nancy?
I actually don't have a better answer than that. And I couldn't get just given the date of, the holiday week, I couldn't get our experts here tonight. I can get that question answered, but it was, according to our experts, it was a common practice or common enough that they felt it was important to address.
So in other words, just to clarify before I see another hand already, just to clarify, like when you say to address, that we need to anticipate that people are going to want it, and so we should have some sort of provision about it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean that they would sort of, it would be like a loophole to the system. They'd put the wood down and then they'd make a concrete floor.
So if I could just jump in, Mayor, the intent of the, I believe the Planning Commission also commented on this, is to deduct points if that construction methodology is incorporated into the project as a disincentive.
Okay, I have comments on what I think should actually happen with that, but I'll save that for after questions when we have had the public hearing. So those are my initial questions. Does others have questions? I saw Vice Mayor had questions.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you again for this presentation. I'm really excited to see this moving forward. My question is, these concerns about the decking, we never heard them in sustainability. I was just going over my notes. Was this a concern raised by those outside experts that have been attending our sustainability committee meetings, or was this a concern raised by Planning Commission?
It was raised by our experts at the Planning Commission.
Just occurred to them then?
Yep. We're the first city doing a thing like this. So it was just part of their process of thinking it through.
I know, we've just been talking about it for like a couple of years now.
I think it may have been raised by a public commentor as well. There was a commentor that had a number of very informed comments on this proposal, and I think that he mentioned the concrete decking as well.
Oh, yes, that's actually more correct, is that it was a written comment that came in that triggered our experts to agree and think up a plan to make sure people were not working on the system.
Okay.
Are there others? Who's member Donahue?
I've seen concrete used for sound purposes to deaden the sound of flooring. There are other ways that I've also seen that are much lighter, and so I appreciate the calculation to be used as a disincentive. When I saw that, I thought that made sense, that, because some people might say, oh, this is a cheap way to level and reduce sound vibration from the floors below, and there are other ways to use wood to do that as well. And the building industry is used to a certain use of concrete, and it's, in my opinion, hard to get them out of habits. And I think that they caught this, and it seems right to me that they did catch it.
So I'll ask a couple other questions. I don't see other hands at this time. The first question I have is, you had the map of all these buildings that are in construction. Do we survey, or did they provide us information as to how many of these buildings have this like concrete topping per decking level? Like, is it so common that like that's happening everywhere? Because we read about these buildings in Vancouver and Seattle and these other places that have been doing them now for a little while, and I don't recall reading about that anywhere. And as Member Donahue noted, like there are other ways to insulate against noise if that is a concern. Because it gets to my point, which is like, why do we even need to have this exception? I would just say an area that has concrete topping can't be included in the calculation. So if they choose to put concrete flooring over the cross-laminated timber, it just doesn't get to count towards their points. So they have to make a structural decision and they use more wood, right? That would be my thing. Like, why even allow it? Like, if there's other ways to do it, you know, like there's other design mechanisms to do it. Why are we even inviting the concrete into the building? But maybe you can tell me, is that like, is this like something that's just a universal standard that concrete makes its way in anyways, but it's just not part of the framing?
I don't have data on that. Scott, do you know anything about it?
No, I really don't, because I haven't visited these new CLT buildings. But I don't see any harm in leaving it in as a disincentive. It seems thoughtful to do that.
Okay, are there other questions? Because I feel like we're gonna have a discussion. Are there other questions? Okay, seeing no more questions. The time, Madam Clerk, is 8:04 p.m. I'm opening the public hearing. Hear ye, all who wish to come and speak on item 11.3 and give comment and testimony to the proposed ordinance related to cross-laminated timber as a source for bonus points within the Emeryville development bonus point system may give testimony now for 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, did we receive any written comments for this item?
We did not. No written comments.
Okay, and this is the last call for hands to comment on this. And seeing no hands, Madam Clerk, the time is still 8:04, but the public hearing is now closed. We'll turn to discussion. Members who wish to give comments on this? Have thoughts? Anyone we haven't heard from? Member Donahue.
Well, I think this is good. We're doing this. I think we need to encourage our California builders to think like this. I know the fire marshals of our state really are encouraging this so we can manage our local wildfire issues better with this. And so I'm just really in favor of this, and we may end up having to modify this in the future, given that we're the first ones that are offering this. But I think we need to step forward and do it.
Member Welch.
Just want to echo Member Donahue's comments, definitely about the safety concern, and also what stood out to me exceptionally was the supply chain, it being a North American product. Many of you probably heard they released the numbers maybe about a week ago. It costs $1 million now to build an affordable unit. So I feel more, it's more pertinent than ever that we find cost-effective ways to build, but especially building housing. And I feel like this is a way that we can perform that. So I am in favor of this ordinance.
Thank you, Member Martinez.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank Member Donahue for keeping his attention on this item, and for the Sustainability Committee and the Planning Commission for their work on moving this forward. I'll be happy to support this tonight.
Okay. Anyone else? So I'm sorry, I see you now. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Medina.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously I'm excited to move forward with this proposal. I think a reach code is a great way of actually trying to attract these to our cities. I think it's innovative policy making. We clearly have a little bit of cleanup to do. I definitely think we should adjust the numbers to the recommendation from Charlie 4 and 1 to get more mass timber of those buildings. I'm interested in discussing the decking issue, I will say, because this is like the first time this popped up, and I've been talking about this for so long. I'm a little taken aback by the Planning Commission going into this a bit. But I just did an informal look at like Google images of all of these cross-laminated timber buildings, and half of them do appear to have polished concrete flooring. So this is probably a thing we should chat about. And not like we have only one bite at the apple and this has to be the most perfect ordinance we've ever created. But I'm interested in what Mayor Bowders is going to say about a solution to that.
Well, yeah, I think that's the only sticking point. I think we figured out the math mistake, and so it needs to go to 8 points, needs to go to 4 points, and 2 points looks like it needs to go to 1 point. But the concrete topping, it says a 10-point deducted per half inch of Portland cement based concrete, but that's building wide. So if they do a half inch through their whole building, we have a whole building with concrete topping, and they only lose 10 points, but they can get points back from the framing, right? So it's almost like we can get them to 50 points through the decking with the 4% thing. And then that framing is like enough bonus, if you will. It's like enough extra points that it's not actually a disincentive to have concrete when you do the math. And I'm inviting staff to correct my math if I'm getting this wrong. But even if this says 4%, in this first box, decking, 4 points per 10% of decking area, right? So 100% of decking area would be 40 points. So it'd be 10 points short of, 50 points. And then framing, I guess it was a max of 10 points then if we're gonna go down from 2 to 1. So it would be a max, if you did 100% of the area of framing, then you'd get 10 points. So it would be 50 points total. And so we're taking 10 points away. So they'd have to come up with, in theory, 10 points somewhere else if they needed 100 points, right? If they need less than 100 points, they don't need this. So maybe it is enough of a disincentive to do that. Maybe that is enough if we left the penalty points where they were and didn't change those. Maybe that is enough, because 10%, they'd have to figure out some other way to come up with 10 points. My question was mostly to members Donahue and Medina, who've been on the committee and done all this work, is I'm fine with all of this. I just question the topping and whether you want to just say, because we are going out as like the first city in the modeling of this. So like a lot of people are going to ask us, why did you do that? And I'm not hearing a really sound reason for why we did it. And I just want to really understand it. Madam City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, just in defense of the Sustainability Committee, as I think the staff mentioned, this came up as a result of a public comment at the Planning Commission. So if the council wishes to take no action on this tonight and finds this Portland cement topping question really, crucial, I would recommend that you send this back to the Planning Commission for further consideration and discussion with members of the public and also with the outside experts who can maybe give you some different approach to addressing this issue.
Well, I'm going to take guidance from I'm looking to them to give I understand that this came after their committee meeting. I'm mostly just looking for them to tell us what they want to do. I just want to let them know that's my question. If you want to move forward, I'll move forward. If you want to spend more time, the city managers proposed that. Member Donahue?
I'd like to move forward, because I think that what happens in the building industry is that they might use concrete topping, like as a thin flooring. It's used sometimes as like a half an inch, and they use it to be the cheapest flooring. Instead of putting down expensive wood floors, they'll just trowel on some, flexible, attractive concrete. It's sort of, and they're not really generating that much weight or greenhouse gas by doing it. A little bit more, but the overall, just gives them options on how to build. And I think that's important, to give them options, to encourage them to, because overall the net savings of building this way means that the foundations have so much less concrete in them because their buildings are so much lighter. So a little bit of topping used as a way to be cheaper with flooring doesn't bother me from a sustainability point of view. But overall, we're encouraging them to use a lot less concrete in this method of building and to end up storing a lot more carbon in the wood. So I say let's just go with it, and then we'll see how it plays out, whether we have takers. We might get no takers, or we might get plenty of takers and want to refine it later, but I think it's worth going ahead.
Vice Mayor Medina?
I'll support Member Donahue in pushing this forward tonight. I think, this is a great first look at this, and we are the first out the gate, so we're probably going to get some feedback from the community as we move forward, and that's okay.
So I'm going to support that. The question I have is about an implementation question, which is we have a measurement here, and I would just ask Charlie, when we do, when we're implementing this to ensure that we give the points, at what point do we measure this? How do we measure this to ensure that we make these deductions? Is it, you know, people put one thing in a plan, oh, we're going to use only a half inch of cement, then they pour a full inch, their contractor pours a full inch. Like, how are we going to measure that to ensure that we don't give away construction? You know, we're not losing what we're supposed to be getting in the community benefits here for sustainability and carbon sequestration. How will staff in practice implement this offset?
Well, Mayor Bowders, this would be like all bonus point items. This would be proposed by the applicant as part of their planning application. And at that time, if they were proposing mass timber, we would explicitly ask if they were planning to use concrete topping, and we would ask also that that be indicated on the plans. There is a standard condition of approval for all planning commission or city council approvals that the plans submitted for a building permit must match the plans that were approved by the planning commission or the city council. So when the building permit application came in, we would compare those to the plans that the commission or council approved to make sure they matched, especially in this case in regard to the concrete topping. I will note though that if for whatever reason there were a change down the line, say where they increased the amount of concrete topping and therefore wouldn't be eligible for as many bonus points as they initially received, there is a provision in the planning regulations that says there's supposed to be a final calculation of the bonus points after the project is completed. And if they're missing bonus points for whatever reason, then they're supposed to contribute an equal amount of funding to the city's park fund. So, I mean, we capture it that way. But hopefully that wouldn't happen. We would just try to keep it consistent all the way through the process to make sure that they actually delivered what they initially committed to.
Thank you for that very helpful explanation. I think that was very helpful. Other members who wish to add, comment, or discuss further? Okay, so I've heard that there's a general consensus. Members, if you look at the attachment to this agenda item that's listed as the ordinance, when you get down to page 5 of 8, in the box there where it says decking 8 points, I believe the conversation was that it needs to go from 8 to 4, and then in the following page of 6 of 8, where it says framing 2 points, it would go from 2 to 1. And I'm just confirming that there are no other sections where those words are typed out. Charlie or Nancy or Christine, are you aware of any other part of, or Mr. Kennedy, of this ordinance where we would need to make other conforming amendments?
I don't believe so. I think that's the only place.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'd like to raise I think the intention of the relative points from the deduction was to have this relationship, the 10 points deducted as in relation to the 8 points you would get for the decking. So I think the intention was for that also then to be 5 points deducted. You know what I mean? I think all the math was double.
Okay. Is there anybody on council who wishes to offset that? Because that would be creating 5-point increments that would need to be captured back. Is that something folks want to do, or do you want to leave it as 10 points? I'll look at members Medina and Donahue who did the primary work on this.
I'm not sure what we should do with that. I guess let's have the math work out where it appears to be the correct math.
Mayor Bowders, if I may.
You may, Mr. Bryant, go ahead.
I don't believe that Councilmember Donahue or Vice Mayor Medina had actually, as they indicated, seen this previously since it was raised at the Planning Commission. So I wouldn't want to, put them on the spot by asking.
I'm not trying to put them on the spot. I'm just being deferential to them as the members who did the work on this.
Yeah, I understand why you're asking us. I'm literally just trying to do some back of napkin math to make sure it maths the way I think it should math, which I think we're all trying to do in real time here, and that's suboptimal, but we're doing it together.
Yeah, I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not asking anyone on the council to justify anything. I understand what their role was. I am being politically deferential to my 2 council colleagues who have done the bulk of this work, and I want to respect their contribution.
Thank you, Mayor Bowders. probably misspoke there. So at any rate, I don't believe that actually that number should be changed, because the first two numbers are percentages of total building area, but this number is not a percentage. It's just 10 points for every half inch. So for example, if you had 4 points for decking, times 100% is 40 points. And then you have half an inch of concrete on that, you lose 10 points, so you get 30 points. I think that is what the intention was.
I'm coming to the same back of math conclusion. I think that actually does work just fine. We're coming out of a hole of 50 points, and you subtract points if you add more concrete.
Right.
Member Donahue, I don't know if you agree, but that I think is exactly what we're going for here. More
Yeah,
concrete,
I think
less points.
it might be too punitive, but let's go with
I'm happy to hear both of you say that, because that is my my proclivity as well.
Yeah, let's just, the maths, let's do.
Okay, so is there anybody here who would like to make a motion to read this ordinance by title only?
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
With the amended numbers.
Just to read the title. We're not reading the ordinance, just the title.
Title only, and to waive first reading and introduce by title only.
Okay, so there's a motion by Member Donahue, seconded by Vice Mayor Medina, to read by title only and waive first reading and read it by introduction with title. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Go ahead.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Emeryville amending the planning code regulations by adding mass timber construction as a community benefit eligible for development bonus points in section 9-4.204 subsection E of the Emeryville Municipal Code, CEQA determination exempt under section 15061 subsection B3.
Okay, thank you. The ordinance having been read by title only at first introduction. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? And if so, are there amendments to the ordinance?
I move approval.
Okay, Member Donahue, may I ask clarification of your motion? Is your motion amending the section on page 5 of 8 in the ordinance? In the table, column 3, after decking, are you amending 8 points to say 4 points?
Yes.
And on page 6, are you amending after the word framing in column 3, are you amending it from 2 points to 1 point?
Yes.
Is that a reflection of your motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Donahue
I will second.
and a second by Vice Mayor Medina to approve this ordinance at first reading. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you. That's approved as amended at first reading. And thank you, everybody, and Member Donahue in particular, for all your work stewarding this. And we will have a second reading on this at the next meeting of this month, and it would take effect 30 days later. So by September, Member Donahue, hopefully we will have some tall tree buildings coming to our city. Look forward to some new environmentally friendly community benefits points coming on. So let me go back from all my documents here to our agenda. Members, that concludes the public hearings for tonight. I'll move to our action items. Item 12.1 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville adopting the Community Grant Subcommittee and Public Art Committee recommendations to select artists Juan Lopez, the Los Pobres Artistas, Stephen Bronson, and Therese Lahai as the recipients for the 2022-2023 Visual Art Grant Pilot Program, approving the artworks proposed by those artists and authorizing the city manager to execute grant recipient contracts with the recipient's fiscal agents for the installation of those proposed artworks. Okay, Mr. Smalley, good evening. And Amber Evans, looks like.
Good evening, Mayor Bowders and council members. This is Amber Evans, Community Development Coordinator. presenting the recommendation tonight for our pilot plant for visual arts grants. And I think the recommended artists are on the call if there are questions to those artists about their proposal, but I will overview them. Next slide, please. Excuse me. As you may recall, in March, we brought this pilot to you very quickly to try and get funds to artists here in Emeryville that were in community organizations or individual artists doing permanent or semi-permanent visual arts, deviating from our community grant program, which has typically had more events and has performing arts which are not allowed under the Art in Public Places funds, which are being used for up to 5 grants of $10,000 each. And we looked at options. We added some options for what was being asked of the applicants. Next slide, please. As noted, Juan Lopez is one of the nominated artists. He is proposing for the Center of Community Life, where he has done a series of other mosaics, and this is a continuation of that series. Steve Brosnan has proposed what he hopes to be the first of a series of portraits of first responders, and he is proposing a portrait to be installed at the fire station on Hollis Street. Therese Lahaye is proposing something that she's done as temporary installations on a number of occasions, and now having a semi-permanent installation on 1440 Stanford that would cast shadow, and I'll show you some pictures because it's perhaps an abstract concept, cast shadows that look like birds on the opposing building across Roth. And then Thomas Jones with Los Pobres Artistas is part of the Bay Area Mural Festival, and this is a festival that's proposed in both South Emeryville and in North Oakland later this summer or early fall. And this is intended to be a community engaged mural with the final design to be done so with input for those participating in the mural, but with a theme, and there is a preliminary design on migration. Next slide, please. Oh, and I will note, as I show you this map of those locations that I just mentioned, the firehouse on Hollis, just south of Powell, ECCL, and then what has been known as the US Spring there on Adeline at 36th. That all of the 4 applicants, 3 of them have as their fiscal agent the celebration of the Emeryville Celebration of Arts. And that was a change from your original panel proposal. That was changed as they identified who could be their fiscal agent, and the final resolution is revised. Next slide, please. Juan Lopez is the artist for who the fiscal agent changed. And this is an example of the works that are already found at ECCL on the left, and then the proposal for the specific new installation as sketched on the right. Next slide. Steve Brosnan is a muralist who has done many works on public facades, but has portrait works that this image on the left was just in the Celebration of the Arts show last year, and is of the type of work that would be done as proposed in the sketch. To the right, the work would be installed on the south side of the fire station on 63rd Street, being mounted on I think it's 6 by 7 feet or thereabouts, work in waterproof materials. Next slide. And then Therese Lahaye, in the image to the left, there's a mirror mounted on the wall, and she has gotten permission from the property owner to do that mounting, casting shadow that does have movement within it. And these are called her birds. And when there are multiple dishes, they can be called flocks. But there is one installation here in the preliminary grant, and she has talked with the tenants in this building about that casting and the neighbors adjacent. Next slide. And then Los Pobres Artistas with Thomas Jones for the presenting organization voice for the project has a community mural, and this is the concept that would be discussed with feedback for looking on something that covers both walls of US Spring. This is a building that has had a lot of murals, recently has been tagged, and so to restore the facade of both sides of that large building. Next slide, please. These have been moving quickly to try and get funds out into the community and within community organizations. And so on May 10th, these were reviewed by the community grant subcommittee and then brought to the PAC. And both bodies recommended all 4 applicants for award. And the staff recommendation tonight is for you to adopt the revised resolution, selecting all 4 applicants, approving the artworks, and authorizing execution of our artist agreements. And with that, I'm available for any questions you might have, as are the artists.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions for staff? Member Welch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there, if we move forward, there would be excess funds, about $10,050. Does staff have any recommendations on how to move forward with those surplus funds?
The PAC's motion originally had been to allocate up to $50,000 for it. The PAC took no action and were asked no questions about it. And as they are advisory to the council on the expenditure of the Art and Public Places funds, I have no recommendation tonight. The funds could be simply returned. If this pilot is continued, they could be used for additional grants in the following year or wherever the program is continued, or put into any of the various programs that are in public places, or they could, as you choose tonight, to make recommendation to allocate them in another way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members have questions for staff before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none, now is the time for public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on item 12.1 will get 2 minutes to do so each. And I would like to ask the clerk when she's ready. I see we have one hand in the audience already. Okay, well, first speaker will be Steve Bronson. If you'd like to hit unmute, and then you'll have 2 minutes. Good evening.
Thank you. Yes, it was the extra $10,000 was brought up in the first subcommittee meeting in May. And I would appreciate the council actually considering dividing that extra $10,000 amongst the 4 artists. It will really help in making up for the time that the artists take in their projects. It will also cover any cost overruns, which are actually happening. And I would appreciate that extra $10,000 being put into the present project for which it was funded for, and to be divided amongst the 4 artists.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment speakers tonight? Sharon Wiltshire is next. She's, well, I don't know. She's raised and lowered her hand twice.
Yeah, it went away.
Okay, Therese Lahai.
This is Therese LaHaye, and I want to second Steve's motion as the preparation for this grant was, it was quite daunting to get all the parties sign off, and also in this inflationary time, it would really make a big difference to the artists being able to break even on their works of art. And I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. The next public commenter, please, will be Sharon Wiltshire.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good evening.
Oh, hi. Sharon Wilshire, actually, as of this month, the former chair and committee member for the Public Art Advisory Committee. In all my years of working on this committee and with many applications for projects, would just like to comment that traditionally we have not expanded our budgets once for projects once the call has been put out and responded to and artists have been selected, only because there may be some other artists who thought about applying for this, but perhaps were maybe just $1,000 or $2,000 short of what their proposal would require and did not apply. And so it's always kind of an awkward thing to change the game after the call has gone out. So the artists who applied to this all applied with the budget at $10,000, and they created their proposals within those boundaries. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment on item 12.1? Okay, seeing none, public comment is now closed. Okay, public comment is now closed. And we'll come back to council for discussion. I would keep hearing a fire truck somehow. We'll come back to the council for discussion. And is there any member who wishes to discuss? Okay, no discussion. Is there members who wish to make a motion?
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by member Martinez, seconded by member Welch to approve the resolution. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you. That resolution is approved. Item 12.2 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville calling for the general municipal election on November 8th, 2022, requesting approval of consolidation with the County of Alameda County, requesting the county registrar of voters to perform certain election services in connection with said November 8th, 2022 election, and authorizing the City of Emeryville to reimburse the county registrar of voters for election services performed. Madam Clerk.
There's no presentation specifically for this item tonight. We will go into a little more depth with your next item, which relates to the ballot measure. But this is just the standard item to approve all the actions that need to be taken for us as a city to consolidate our election with the county and have the registrar perform certain services for us, for which we will reimburse them.
Thank you. Members, are there any clarifying questions? This is a standard resolution that comes up every election cycle. Okay, seeing none, now is the time for public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on item 12.2 will get 2 minutes to do so. Do we receive any written comment cards for this item?
We did not.
Okay, and seeing no hands raised, public comment is now closed, and I'll turn back to council members. Is there anything to discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion by member Martinez and second by member Donahue to approve this resolution has been made. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, that resolution is approved. Thank you, members. Item 12.3 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville ordering the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Emeryville, the general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Every time a screen share goes up, I lose my thing. As called by a separate resolution, I propose ordinance amending section 3-3.702 of the Emeryville Municipal Code to establish tiered rates for the City of Emeryville's real property transfer tax. based on value of consideration, and directing the city attorney to prepare an impartial analysis and authorizing the filing of direct arguments for or against the measure, as well as rebuttal arguments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a very short presentation tonight. Just reminding you, this process started over a year ago with the Budget and Governance Committee's interest in assessing ballot measures for the 2022 election cycle. We made a presentation to you, a couple of presentations to you in the fall with the results of some initial analysis, and then a presentation of initial poll results in January. Based on that, you chose to forego the June primary as an opportunity and directed us to conduct community engagement, which we did over the course of the spring, came back to you in May for authorization to conduct a second poll, presented the results of that poll to you last month on June 21st. That poll tested voter interest in a transfer tax modification. Next slide, please. The ballot question that was tested in that poll and that we've been talking to you about for the last 6 or so months is the language that is before you and was in your packet. What this would do is modify the city's existing real property transfer tax to provide that for sales between 1 million and 2 million, the rate would be $15 per thousand, and above 2 million in sale value, the rate would be $25 per thousand. For those sales below $1 million, the rate would not change. It would stay at $12 per thousand. So this is, if the council wishes to move forward with this item tonight, the ballot question that would appear on the November 8th, 2022 ballot. You have a resolution and an ordinance which is required to amend the Emeryville Municipal Code to adopt this tax change if the voters so choose to do it. Well, first, if you place it on the ballot and then they vote yes. Again, this would be a 50% plus 1 majority measure as a general tax. Next slide, please. If you choose to move forward, the actions that you take tonight would require the city attorney to prepare an impartial analysis by August 1st, would authorize arguments for and against the measure to be submitted by, require them to be submitted by August 11th, rebuttal arguments by August 18th. The resolution would authorize the city council to file arguments in favor of the measure, and that would all be in advance of the November 8th, 2022 election day. Next slide. So our recommendation, based on everything that we've heard from the council up to date, is that you adopt the resolution placing the measure to amend the real property transfer tax before the voters on November 8th, directing the preparation of the impartial analysis and authorizing the filing of arguments. We also have Bonnie Moss from Clifford Moss, who's been assisting us in this process here on the call tonight. If you have questions for either of us, that ends the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Do any members of the council have questions for the city manager, the city attorney, or for Bonnie Moss? Okay, seeing no questions, now is the time for public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on item 12.3 will get 2 minutes to do so. Madam Clerk, did we receive any written comment cards in advance of today's meeting?
We did not.
Okay, public comment then is now closed, and we'll come back to the members for discussion. Is there any discussion, members? We had this discussion a little bit at the last meeting, so this is, if anyone wasn't following, we had a kind of a discussion about what the public was telling us. We've had a series of public meetings about this at the Budget and Governance Committee, the Budget Advisory Committee. Every one of our resident advisory committees had an opportunity to provide feedback on this. There were multiple public outreach efforts made through polling as well as a citywide town hall. We've had discussions with people and businesses around the community, and this is an equitable way of moving and advancing the city's needs to generate revenue to provide its core and critical community services to the people who live and work here. Okay, is there a motion to approve this resolution to prepare all the following documents?
Move the resolution.
Okay,
A second.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Martinez and a second by Member Donahue to approve the resolution. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
Mayor Bowders?
Aye, between chopped vegetables in my background. I'm sure you can all hear it. Okay, item 12.4 is the designation of voting delegate and alternates to the League of California Cities Conference. Madam Clerk.
Again, no presentation for this item. You had the information in your packet. This year's League of California Cities Annual Conference will be held in person, September 7th through 9th in Long Beach, California. And so your task tonight is to designate somebody to vote on whatever resolutions are put forward for that business meeting at the end of the conference. And so it makes sense to have the person who's going to be the voting delegate be a person who's going to the conference.
Thank you. Before we go to public comment so that people know what we're voting on, I am the city's representative to the League of California Cities. I have been for a few years now, given that I serve on one of the League's policy committees on public works and transportation. But despite being our city rep, I have nominated my alternate every year to go to the conference, both to share that space, also because it's generally not the best time of year for me to travel. So this year we have a new alternate in the League of Cities citywide representation space, and that would be Member Welch. And so if Member Welch will accept the nomination and the rest of the members would approve, I would like to nominate Member Welch to be our voting representative at the League of California Cities conference in Long Beach. Member Medina?
No, just my hand up.
Oh, I thought your hand went up like you were
I want to go. No.
Well, I'll say Member Welch. I think, Member Donahue, have you ever gone? Because I know that I've nominated the other two before to go.
No, I've never gone, but that's a difficult time for me.
Okay, yeah, same for me. So, Member Welch, would you accept a nomination as the alternate to go to the League of California Cities Conference on our behalf?
I accept your nomination, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and just to be clear, we haven't received the packet from the League, which often has one or two resolutions. And if we do get those resolutions, we sometimes will give direction as to how we would like you to represent the city on those items. In the past, we've had a couple of times where we are all kind of like, who really cares? And we will ask you to make friends with whoever you'd like and then use your conscience to best represent us. So at this time, I'll call for public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on this item will be afforded 2 minutes to do so. And Madam Clerk, did we receive any comment cards for this item?
No cards.
Okay, then public comment is now closed. And members, is there anybody who, Member Martinez?
Oh, I just wanted to let Member Welch know, last year I was very short on time, so I treated it as a one-day meeting. I drove in, made the vote, and made a stink about whatever I was voting about, and then left. So you don't have to be there for 3 days if your schedule does not permit. And again, as the mayor stated, we can go over the materials together on what the league will be voting about. So.
Million about rodenticide pops up again.
What's that?
Rodenticide will probably come up again every year with the rodents.
Yeah, there's a little bastion of Southern California cities that get together and they like always propose something. There's always something from them, and it's just a question of when the deadline is. Madam Clerk, do you know when the deadline to file with the league is this year by chance?
I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but assuming time allows, we would bring back the package to the first September meeting, which would give you all time to weigh in before the delegate has to cast their vote.
Yeah, I think the council meeting is September 6th, and I think the league conference is the 7th and 8th. So you'll have fresh in your mind exactly whatever we complained about the night before you go. So, okay, with that, I would like to make a motion to, and Madam Clerk, do we also need to also nominate a alternate?
You may, but you don't have to.
Just to be safe on that front, so we don't have to have enough future agenda item. Is there anybody who would be willing to go as the alternate for Member Welch should something happen that prevent her from going?
Don't everyone all answer at once.
I can't.
Okay, so Member Medina, it's September 7th and 8th. It's a Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I forget.
I mean, if something really bad happens, maybe.
So what I'll do is if nobody will
I'll do it.
You'll do it? Okay.
I'll alternate, yeah, if something terrible happens, Courtney.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to appoint Member Welch as our voting delegate and representative to the League of California Cities Conference and Vice Mayor Medina as our alternate.
Second. Oh, wait, no, you, okay.
So I'm going to say Member Donahue seconded that motion. Okay, so it was a motion by Mayor Bowder, seconded by Member Donahue. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you, and Godspeed to you, Member Welch. We have many. You'll join a fun family of people here who have been to the place before. Item 12.5 is a discussion on whether to add a future agenda item to consider amending the City Council Rules of Procedure to discontinue the role of the council liaison to Emeryville Community Advisory Committees and Commissions. So this item was a request I had made. I have had a number of conversations with a variety of people, predominantly parents, who have expressed to me here in the city of Emeryville and elsewhere that one of the prohibitive elements of serving on a city council or in a commission or a committee where we don't compensate, really. We get small stipends for our work. These are not considered full-time positions. Each person here has another way in which they provide for themselves and their families, and they have children, spouses, loved ones, other things that they also equally want to give their time to, and that their service to the community is a labor of love. Cats included, cats that eat foam and get surgeries on them repeatedly because they can't behave and jump out windows and have to have the mayor come help look for them on a Saturday morning. Those are all things that happen. Yes, Harlan, I'm talking about you. But that being said, I've just been reflecting on how to make service in our city more equitable, and just thinking about the demands on council members, especially the parents on our council who have small children, who have bedtimes, who need to have space to meet other needs. I also think of the young professionals on our council who have jobs and careers, and the need to be able to balance work and council and be able to do all the things that are demanded of them. And then I think of people who've also served for a long time and who have other things they want to do with their time. And trying to find the balance in that is hard, but I just wanted to propose for discussion whether if other council members want to share their personal experience with council liaisons, or their thoughts about this just in a general sense. But in thinking about going forward, I want to make sure that service to the city council is something that is achievable for everybody. And there are limits to what we can do. We can't just give ourselves better compensation or vote to give ourselves our own staff to help us with the things that we do. So just wanted to see if this was something that people thought was helpful, was to take us off of being council liaisons, since we have way more committees than most cities do, especially small cities, and whether that's something that people are interested in. So I'll just open it up. Raise your hand if you'd like to comment on this, and I'd be happy to just entertain discussion to see if it's worth coming forward with something to change the rules. Member Martinez.
Should we just check in with public comment real quick, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, we could do that. That's fine. So let's call for public comment first. Members of the public who wish to comment on this item will have 2 minutes to do so. Charity, to receive any comment cards?
No cards.
Okay, public comment will be closed, and we'll go ahead, Member Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is we've had council liaisons on and off in this city. They were not on when I was elected, and they came back after some time. I know that former city council members and mayors West and Asher, during their time on council, actually requested that council liaison duties be paused, because for all of the reasons that you stated, because they had young families and careers. One of them went through grad school while serving as council member and mayor, and they needed their time back. So I think this is a good idea. If there were 28 hours in the day, I would serve on even more committees as a liaison if I could, because I think it's extremely fulfilling. I enjoy that work, but when you're looking for a place to trim the fat, this is a duty that other council members, don't know anyone else who does this. for whom it is not a full-time job as council. So this is a labor of love for all of us, and there are a few hours in the day, and we want to make them count. So I would be in favor of having this discussion continue.
John, you're on mute.
Thank you, Member Martinez. I had recognized Member Donahue's hand being up earlier without the electric one. Go ahead.
I think it's a good idea. You know, I know that members of our community serving on committees like generally having a council member there because they feel like they're getting more direct representation. And, you know, if we have these committee members really requesting us back as liaison, maybe we could, you know, come once every other meeting or something if there's an express need in the future. But I think we'll attract more people to running for office and really willing to be council members if we lighten the load as you're suggesting. And so I like the idea.
Member Welch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I've found it helpful as a newer member on the council for the past 7 months, but it can take a considerable amount of more time, and having considerably younger children who I hear in the living room right now who have not gone to bed like they're supposed to, it does add a lot more to the plate as a council member. I want to note, I also had a similar idea as Councilmember Donahue about maybe not completely eradicating the process of having a council liaison, but maybe just changing the attendance to being quarterly, or even just the liaison and the committee chair perhaps having a meeting amongst themselves, or being available upon request. If there's a particular agenda item that they are really passionate about, where they really want council input, I think that would help with the balance. But yes, I would like to see this item, continuing discussion on this item.
And I'll give a city attorney has his hand up, but I noticed the agenda item says that but I just want to be clear. It says we're having an agenda item to discuss an agenda item, which I don't think is what we directed. I think it was to just have the discussion tonight as to whether we want to bring something back. So I'm just trying to get consensus of that, but I'd be happy to entertain the feedback from the city attorney.
I just wanted to point out the language in the agenda was a discussion of whether to add a future agenda item to consider amending the rules of procedure, not actually to have a discussion on whether to go ahead and amend the rules. Just wanted to point that out, that's how the agenda is framed for tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So do people wish to put this on a future agenda item? Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused by the last piece of advice, because it just feels like we're gonna have 4 agenda items to get to the finish line, which seems silly to me. But just to be clear, so what will happen at the next meeting?
I can jump in.
The discussion we just had, and then we have to have another meeting to actually bring an amendment back. I mean, that's the part I'm confused about.
If I may, so you're deciding or directing tonight whether you would like an item to come back. To change the rules of procedure, which is where the instruction about council liaison lives, requires a resolution. So we would bring back a future agenda item that would give you the opportunity, if you discussed it and decided to do so, to take that action. So that would happen at the very next occurrence.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're just seeking direction. Is the direction of the council that you wish to have an agenda item to have that discussion and potentially amend the rules? Thumbs up from Member Donahue and Member Martinez and Member Medina, and okay, it's unanimous. So thank you very much. We will come back with that item. Okay, that moves us to item 12.6, which is a resolution of the City Council making required findings to continue remotely held meetings pursuant to AB 361. Is there anybody who has questions about this resolution? No. I just want to, I'm just going to say, there's nobody here this evening. I'm just going to say for the record, a couple people have contacted the city council about remote meetings and having remote meetings. And I just want to frame up a couple things. One, the coronavirus has not disappeared. In fact, infection rates have increased. There are new variants that have come to the United States that are resistant to the vaccinations that people have received over the past year, that prior Omicron and Delta infections are not proving to have developed antibodies for these. So there's a potential that we see an increase in these cases, and it would be, I think at this time, not the most prudent thing for the city to stray from the path it's on. It's also, the governor has declared a state of emergency. The county of Alameda has ordered indoor mask wearing. So we're in line actually with best health prudence on this. AB 361 authorizes us to make these findings to be consistent with what we think is in the best interest of the safety, health, and welfare of our community. I would note that members of City Hall have had coronavirus on and off, and so bringing people into City Hall could unnecessarily expose members of our public who in fact may be more vulnerable to coronavirus by putting them in that space. And then I would also just note that there are two bills that were pending this year to make permanent changes to the Brown Act. One of those did die, AB 1944 did die, but the other bill, although it has some flaws, I think, is still out there. And if that bill was to be passed and signed into law, it would create new permanent ways in which absences or remote meeting attendance by members could be effectuated, and that would take place on January 1st. And I think it would be unusual at this point, absent coronavirus miraculously going away, to ask our staff to make, and the public to make a big pivot in the next month. We're not going to change this before July, so make a big pivot in September, and then potentially have to make another whole pivot and change all the procedures again in January, which would only actually stand to confuse the public. So I just want to put that out there because we don't make these findings in a vacuum. It's not something that we're doing without giving thought to the findings that are required for AB 361. I think that the council has been pretty clear that we're available and accessible and ready to serve, as has our staff been, but we are trying to put the public health at the forefront of this, and I don't think that our actions are inconsistent with that. Is there any public comment on the resolution? Seeing none, is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Martinez and seconded by Member Welch. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, that's approved. Are there any department head reports tonight? No department head reports. Are there any future agenda item requests from members? Member Martinez.
Yes, I'm wondering if council would join me in considering a future agenda item to look at 5% increase to the council stipend, which would be within the confines of our charter without going to the vote. We haven't done so since 2017, although we are able to do so annually. And as we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of barriers to serving in this capacity for our city, and want to start to lower those barriers for future candidates and council members, and just bring us up to par with other cities.
Is there support for Member Martinez's request? Okay, that's unanimous. There will be a future agenda item. Can we, do you have a time frame you're requesting, or is it sufficient to ask that it be after, not the next July meeting, but September is fine?
I would just add staff's earliest convenience.
Okay.
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, if I could, so this would just be bringing forward an item asking you whether you want to activate the government code section that allows a 5% increase, sort of like we did tonight, and then the actual amendment would come back after that. So maybe if we can pull it off for the 19th, we'll try to do that.
Okay, I think that's fine. Everyone's fine with that? I see heads nod, yes. Okay, that's the direction. Anyone else with a future agenda item request? Okay, seeing none at this time. The time is 9:02, Madam Clerk. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time this evening. We got through 6 meetings. Have a great evening.
Excellent stewardship, Mayor. That was A+. You
All
didn't
right.
even flub like a single name on the motion and second.
I am operating on Toronto time still, so which means it's bedtime now. It's 12:02 back where my brain is. So
Good job.
see you all later. Have a good night.
I was about to serve you some vegetables.